Hi, today we're talking about men and mental health. And I have my fellow friend and colleague with me, Bruce Edhouse. He's also an integrative counselor. Hi, Bruce.
Hello,
Thank
you
you
all
for
right?
joining me tonight. You
Oh,
okay?
pleasure. Yeah, very good, thanks. Yeah.
So, Bruce, the information that I retrieved from the Mental Health Foundation, 1 in 8 men, they suffer from mental health problems, but they are reluctant to search for support or to reach out to their loved ones. Why do you think that is?
Well, I think, in our society, we have a certain idea about how men and about how boys should behave and about what they should be. Obviously, we have the idea that men should be strong, men should take charge of things, men should be the head of the household. And of course, we all know the phrase, boys don't cry. And for a lot of men and a lot of boys, that means that there's a pressure on them not to show their emotions. If something bad happens, I'm sure you're aware that childhood and adolescence are filled with traumatic things, filled with raging emotions sometimes. And if you can't express those, they'll just kind of go down and they get pushed down and down and down. And eventually they come out again later as something else. That something else could be anxiety, it could be anger, it could be aggression, it could be loneliness or just confusion about who you are because you've never really been able to express who you are to someone else. So hence you've never really needed to know what it is that you feel. And of course, when this happens over a large amount of time, it really can build up. So, I think that's probably a major contributing factor. Yeah.
Hmm. And that can also lead sometimes for a person not to even recognize that they need mental health support because they're suppressing their feelings so much, which then
Mm.
spiral into them not getting the necessary support that they need.
That's right, yeah. Sometimes there can be a specific incident that makes a man access therapy or makes a man be told that he should access therapy. It's, yeah, it, like I say, it can come out in all kinds of different ways. Yeah.
Hmm. And also, I've read about 36% of referrals were received by the increasing access in psychological therapies services.
Hmm.
So I just wondered, do you think there's a difference between women and men mental health in women and men?
That's a really interesting question. And on one hand, the answer is yes, definitely. On the other hand, the answer is not really, actually, because some men find it very difficult to actually talk about these feelings because they've had a lifetime of a message being forced upon them that they shouldn't have these emotions. Even it can take a lot of time to actually explore what they are. It can take a lot of time to identify, understand what these emotions are, and to feel safe enough to say, that's how I feel. I do feel angry. I do feel anxious. I do feel embarrassed. All these kind of things, the kind of emotions that maybe you don't want to admit to people. Now, it can be so difficult. What we do sometimes, a tool that I like to use is just a thing called an emotion wheel, which kind of names different emotions in different areas. And we can kind of just look at that and go, yeah, this thing here, this is part of who I am. This thing here, this is part of who I am. And we talk about things in very simple language because that's the first step that we need to take.
Mm.
Now, I don't want to generalize here, but it seems to me that women are encouraged to express their emotions a little bit more. They're not told not to cry as
Mm.
a young child. Um, Sometimes it's best just to have a good cry and get these things out. If a boy's not able to, that's like I say, when it gets kind of pushed down later. But the thing is, once we actually start this, once we start naming what these emotions are, once we start to understand what they are, it kind of demystifies them. It makes them safe. It doesn't. It makes them not scary anymore. It makes it okay to feel. And the more that happens, the easier it is to talk.
Mm.
So, like I say, to begin with, things can be very, very different. But once we actually get used to talking about mental health, once we actually get used to talking about the feelings that we feel, then maybe there isn't as much difference as people might think.
Mm. And sadly, in 2017, 5,821 cases were suicidal cases, and 75% of that total was male, which is really sad. And it normally happens with males by the age of 50 and under.
Yeah, it is tremendously sad. I understand that the biggest risk in terms of age brackets is between 40 and 50, and that's because if I say, like, as a child, everything's new, all your emotions are so strong. If you're not encouraged, or rather, if you are encouraged not to show these feelings, if you're kind of taught that what you feel is wrong, that can stay with you. That can affect who you are as an adult. By the time you get to the age of 40 or 50, these buried, suppressed things can have been in there for a long, long time, for 25, 30, 40 years. And, maybe that's a contributing factor as to why suicide is a high risk at that age for some men. But the thing is, as I say, once we actually get used to talking about these feelings, once we demystify them, once somebody can actually show you that it's safe to say, I feel angry. It's safe to say, I feel embarrassed. It's safe to say, I feel helpless. That is such a huge, huge step towards working out who you are and to accepting who you are. And talking is going to be the number one thing that will get the suicide rate down. I feel very, very confident that this will be the case in generations going forward. A lot of men that I talk to are concerned that they're in therapy now because of the actions or the non-actions of their family, of the effect of things that were said to them as a child, of what was expected of them as a child, as a teenager. And the thing that they don't want is to pass this on to the next generation. They don't want to pass it on to their own children. And that fills me with a great deal of hope for the future. I'm very, very happy that society has got to the stage where it is possible to recognize that taking care of your own mental health is one of the best things that you can do for your family.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really, really good to hear. And it's always good to have hope.
Absolutely.
Not just but for the future as well, for us as humankind. Thank you so much, Bruce. Thank you for your insight.
Absolute pleasure.
Bye.